Good morning. First of all, I thank Hammurabi and Solomon Partners for having me at this event. I have been extremely fortunate that I have been associated with the IBC in different capacities since its very inception. When in SBI, I was part of the committee which drafted the SOP for implementation of the IBC. Even as we were doing this, the RBI directions were issued in 2017 for initiation of CIRP against 12 large accounts. And I was involved in 2 of the large accounts. Subsequently, I was in IBBI. It was a very, very initial stages. We had very little support, just a few of us. But I could have real hands-on experience in many areas of regulation, policies. Now, of course, I am MD of NeSL, Information Utility Service Provider. Now, the news of the budget is still making headlines. It has been widely acclaimed, focused on the farm sector, employment generation, infrastructure development, issues about LTCG, gold, realty, generated a lot of debate in the media. But amidst all the din, let's not lose sight that IBC also finds a place in the budget. Honorable Finance Minister in the Union Budget 2024 declared that an integrated technology platform will be set up for improving the outcomes under IBC for achieving consistency, transparency, timely processing, and better oversight for all stakeholders. It also stated that appropriate changes to the IBC, reforms and strengthening of tribunals and appellate tribunals will be initiated to speed up insolvency resolution. IBC is a success story, is now well settled. But let us dwell on a few aspects, maybe just to have that feel-good factor as we start this conference. IIM Ahmedabad had done a study on resolutions under the IBC. In its report in August 2023, it observed that the firms that went through the resolution process under the code have significantly improved the performance in the post-resolution period. Specifically, these firms' profitability, liquidity, activity, and turnover have improved during the resolution period. A couple of other data points. Highest number of resolutions till date were achieved in financial year 2024, which was 269. This year, IBBI has not published the data. We did a rough analysis around 54, which means we are fairly on track. There's also a consensus about behavioral change. The borrowers are keen to settle or have a resolution with their lenders. NPAs of banking system, they were in double digits in 2017. Today they are in very low single digits, among the lowest possible in the history. Of course, Madam Bharti also mentioned 28,000 applications were withdrawn after filing of the application. But what is the biggest achievement of the IBC? In my opinion, the biggest achievement is a creation of a new class of professionals, the IPs. The IPs had their baptism by fire. One IP was arrested. Many had FIRs against them. Some were obstructed from performing their duties under the IBC. They had to take police help. Others faced threats. I was in SBI then. I got a call from my colleague. Sir, this IP we have appointed, he's not listening to me. I sensitized him. IP has to be independent of all external influences. In the face of all these, IPs have delivered. Of course, the system has supported them. The AAs have come out with landmark judgments. We were in IBBI and we thought, I remember some of the IPs said that we want that government I-card which you people wear. I said, we can't do that, but we will give you a facilitation letter. And after registration, this letter still goes to every IP. What is the biggest contribution of IPs? Is it the recovery of bank dues? Is it the resolution of companies? I would say it's something more. They have saved lives. Because what's a life without livelihood? I was in IBBI. I used to get scores of emails from employees begging for assistance. Please help us get our salaries. In one large CD which I visited, it had 20,000 employees. Imagine the relief for them when the company became solvent under new owners. So, by rescuing jobs, IPs have given life to many. Of course, the IBC also gave birth to another class of professionals, the registered valuers, RVs. The valuation profession is one of the oldest in India. But for the first time, it has come under some kind of regulation. So, Madam Bharti also mentioned, what next? In fact, we were in a conference last week and there was a suggestion that there should be a BLRC version 2. Maybe it can still be considered. But yes, it's time for the next generation of reforms. Their unfinished agenda related to code. Madam Bharti mentioned about group insolvency. This cross-border insolvency. Madam Bharti also mentioned about individual insolvency, how it's not been successful. We possibly need to make tweaks to them. At one point in time, we were in fact about to notify individual insolvency. Possibly it needs some tweaks, but yes, that's part of the unfinished agenda. But there is one aspect of the resolution and the IBC which we cannot see in all the data in the public domain. But we all know it is there. It is like the elephant in the room. There is an iceberg. The iceberg, only 10% is visible. But the 90% which remains invisible under the water, that can be lethal. The Titanic found that. In one of the conferences I was attending, this data of resolutions was very well appreciated. But the issue arose, what is your inflow? What is the number of applications which are filed? Are the resolutions enough to clear the inflows? The code provides for 14 days for the AA to admit a CD into CRP. We are aware that it's not so, based on actual experience. The MCA discussion paper had a number of proposals, and one of them was to use the information utility to ensure that the delay at the time of admission is reduced and the AA has adequate documents and evidence to establish default and admit a CD into CRP within reasonable timelines. I understand we do have a session on proposed amendments to the code. Another issue is about recovery for OCs. Seem to have progressively diminished over time. Recovery for them is often negligible out of a resolution plan. Many of them are MSMEs. So that's another matter of concern. There is also a feeling that insolvency resolution is not about curing default, but to anticipate the event of default and take preventive action. This is because default is preceded by a period of lingering stress, which leads to loss of enterprise value. Dr. Sahu was there in the last week's conference, and he recollected his famous words that the best use of the IBC is not to use the IBC. So I gave a rejoinder to that. I said, the best use of the IBC is to use the IBC, but not use CRP. How do you do that? Maybe I'll talk in detail in my session. So the IU could play a role. It provides the broadcast of default and reporting of default by a creditor and authentication of the same. This eliminates information asymmetry as all creditors become aware of the default. There's pressure on the CD to negotiate and come to a mutually acceptable solution. Madam Bharti also talked about alternate resolution plans. Recently, the Insolvency Law Academy came out with a paper on something called CLRP, Creditor Linked Resolution Process. Here the AA is approached at the last stage for approval of the resolution plan, and the entire process is completed within a maximum of 150 days. This framework will encourage the application and use of negotiation and mediation insolvency process to reduce avoidable adversarial litigations and reduce the workload of an AA, which is already overburdened. Finally, the IBC was a game changer. It has achieved remarkable success. It is still felt it is among the best way to resolve stress. But we need to keep building on what was achieved so that it retains its cutting edge. Thank you for a patient hearing.